pleasure actually to announce the next speaker and invite her to the rostra. Jane Hayward is principal at Strathewen Primary, and she has personal experience of working in these contexts, and I'd like to welcome her up now. Please welcome her.
Thank you, thank you. No slideshow for me, you've just got me. And Carol and Lisa, I mean, singing from the same book. So I thought what I'd do is have a little talk about our journey and our experience. It's been a tough summer for so many Australians with the fire season, and for myself and our little community, we've kind of been there and we get it. I occasionally look back and look at my little staff team and think, how did we do it? But we did, we got there, those weeks, days, weeks, months, years. And I will say, adrenaline in the early days is a wonderful thing. It's amazing what you can get done, how much you can fit into a day. Fortunately, I had then and still have a terrific staff team working alongside me, which makes a great difference, and all of us collectively believed in the importance of student wellbeing underpinning everything. And we were in really unfamiliar territory with so much grief and loss surrounding us. It was everywhere we looked, and for all of us, we lived and worked, as Carol was saying, we lived and worked in the same communities. So personally and professionally, we were dealing with some tough stuff. Day one for us, back then in 2009, we opened only a couple of days after the fires in our temporary setting. And I was saying to someone earlier, my big grade, I'm a principal, but I teach, and my senior grade 3, 4, 5, 6, came in, sat down with the music teacher who pulled out her guitar, and they sang this soft, slow, melodic round, and they sang it, and they sang it, and they sang it. It was almost like a chant, and we all just sat back and let that happen. And they just needed to be there in that space, and it worked for them. It was I look back now and it was really strange, but that was what they needed. They needed to just connect through music, and that probably set the tone for quite a few things we did over the next few years. For us, getting back to school as soon as possible and running our own little school 20 k's away on a temporary site was vital. I needed my kids, my students, as much as they needed their school to be up and running. Everything in their lives had been turned upside down. They were living in temporary accommodation, and home life was shot, really, in a lot of cases. Everything had changed, and school gave them contact with the people they cared about, they knew, they felt safe with, and somewhere to be. And quite often our parents would come and stay all day, every day, because they had nowhere to be. They didn't have a house to clean. They didn't have, in many cases, a job that was still in existence. And separation anxiety was a huge issue. So parents often needed to be close by. And as has been said already, the school was the centre of everything in our little community. Our little township isn't really a township. There isn't a shop or a pub or a post office. There's the school, the hall, the footy ground, and pavilion. We found from those early days the arts were a wonderful tool for healing and recovery. And you know, our children expressed emotion, they shared their concerns, they also were given a high interest outlet to express themselves. We wrote songs and poems and danced, did circus acts. Circuses have popped up a little bit here, had performers coming in and things, and highly engaging activities, which were a great distraction. We worked on always having something special coming up for our students so that we always had something to look forward to. And since that time in 2009, that's how I live my life. I always make sure that on the horizon I've got something that I'm really anticipating happily. I think it's a good way to live. We were overwhelmed with offers of different opportunities, outings, performers, incursions, all sorts of things. And we had to be a little selective in what we went with. It had to work for us, which did mean putting a few people offside at different times, but we couldn't have taken on everything and still run a school. That was beyond us. So we carefully sort of navigated through and worked with what worked for us, and always had something coming up on the calendar. And as Lisa was saying, the Alpha program, we were fortunate enough to have a staff member trained up in the last few years in the program, and it cements all that knowledge. I think it really did wonders for our staff member too, in knowing that her arts program could fulfil that incredible role. Behind all that, our kids didn't want strangers in their school. They returned to school, you know, we'd had 1 week of 2009 school year. So they came back and they did not want a procession of strangers coming in wanting a photo opportunity. They didn't want media. They didn't want politicians. They didn't want any of that. And they were calling them the tragedy tourists. That's what our kids, my senior kids, were calling those people, and they hated it. And we kept the media at bay. There wasn't a good story there at that stage, early days. We didn't have too much good news. So, and our families were so vulnerable, it would never have been healthy for them to front cameras. So the school role became protecting our kids and our community and our staff as well. And it didn't take long really in the media to figure out who the good guys were. I can say that, I guess. Disaster can be really isolating. Even though there's a lot going on, you can feel like you are the only school and the only place that's dealing with what's presenting. We clung to one another, I guess, and I think it's left us with a really united staff team and community. My past students all still come back and are involved. I'm in contact with people in their early 20s who lived through that 2009 stuff with us, and the bond is incredible. So some pretty amazing things can come from a major disaster like that. Something that was really important for us was clinging to, and I say clinging, to established school traditions. So things like our Easter egg drop picnic night barbecue, that has never ever been let go. It's a quirky little tradition that we have. There are quite a few things that are just, there is no chance they will ever be dropped from the school calendar, because you've lost a significant documented history. So traditions become really, really important. Working with distressed children is really hard. Teaching them is hard work. Learning is interrupted. We called it the Swiss cheese effect, where you thought you'd taught these incredible lessons and everything was mastered, and next day it was as if it had never been seen before. So we had to adapt our teaching style and modify how we delivered programs. Loads of revision, loads of targeted teaching, additional staff on the ground to assist with small group workshops, and a lot of patience and a lot of kindness. The kids are very aware of their interrupted learning too in my senior grade. They were then. That was something that they all knew. But we maintained, we had arts, we had all sorts of wonderful things happening, but we stuck to our regular programs. So 9 o'clock arrival every day was the same curriculum. They knew they weren't good at surprises. So a visual timetable was up. They knew when it was maths and when it was reading and when they were breaking for brain food. They knew if there was a special event coming days in advance so that they could prepare themselves for it. And we worked to maintain those routines. Still do, actually, because this far, 11 years down the track, we still have many fire-impacted families within our school community, and we have to be mindful of many, many challenges that other schools don't face. Children will, in these early days post-fire, some will want to talk, some won't, but they will all need support. It's a long gig. I'm getting told to stop. It's a long haul. It's a hard haul, but I think the value you can add as professionals to the students affected by disaster is incredible. Our focus now is using the arts in disaster resilience education programs, and our program is in its 5th year this year, and we're all about, we've come through, I guess, the other end, and we are looking at resilience education programs and channeling our efforts in that direction. Thank you. I could talk for an hour and a half, but I won't do it.